It's Sunday, December 17th, and this is The National.
Tonight, flights grounded, tens of thousands of passengers stranded after the power goes out at the world's busiest airport.
Ottawa rallies around the home team after the owner threatens to move the Sens and then blames the fans for it.
But we begin tonight with new details in the deaths of a Toronto billionaire couple. Barry and Honey Sherman were two of Canada's richest people, but ever since their bodies were found on Friday, they've also been at the heart of a mystery, very short on details until now. Tonight, police are releasing information on how they died. Lorenda Redekop has tonight's developments.
Grief and heartbreak in front of the mansion where the bodies of Barry and Honey Sherman were discovered on Friday. Among those paying their respects, Apotex employees.
I don't know what to say. It's just really tragic. They're good people. They really are. They don't deserve this.
Since Friday, only questions. But finally, late today, new information. Police released the autopsy results. The cause of death for both Shermans, ligature neck compression. And homicide detectives are now leading the investigation. Over the weekend, some news outlets quoted police sources saying the deaths were being investigated as a murder-suicide. Yesterday, the Sherman family issued a statement strongly criticizing police and the media for that. Today, a source close to the family called it unfathomable that the couple could have died that way. Paul Godfrey, the CEO of Post Media, was the couple's friend for almost 30 years. He planned to see them over Christmas in Florida.
First of all, it was almost a denial thing that the thing happened. You said, well, that couldn't be. Why would they both be gone in their own home?
He remembers Honey for her dedication to philanthropy.
She was warm, she was outgoing, she was bombastic in some ways. Honey always got her way. She pushed and pushed, especially as charity causes.
Dancing in the coffee shop. Dancing in the shoe store.
One example, taking part in a Dancing with the Stars-style fundraiser for the Baycrest Foundation, raising money for a Jewish seniors' home.
Thought maybe she was joking because of her arthritis. She's had such difficulties in recent years, even walking. To think that she could take this on was amazing to me. I didn't think she'd be up to it.
He remembers Barry as a workaholic, passionate about bringing cheaper generic drugs to countries around the world.
Barry worked all the time. He did not show off. He did not have the most expensive clothes. In fact, he had an old jalopy as a car until Honey bought him something new.
Previously, police called the deaths suspicious, but there was no sign of forced entry into the home and said they weren't searching for any suspects. It's not clear whether that's still the case today. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Adrian, you're watching a developing situation tonight in Atlanta.
Indeed, Rosie, this one's all about power, or the absence of it at the most inconvenient time, just ahead of the busy holiday travel season. Just chaos and misery at the world's biggest passenger airport. A massive power failure was reported at about 1 p.m. after a fire damaged an underground electrical facility. And the airport has been a giant parking lot ever since for both planes and people. Officials say the grid is partially restored, but it's still a massive mess. Thousands of people in the dark inside the Atlanta airport or sitting on grounded planes out on the tarmac. A week before Christmas, not fun. Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson is the world's busiest airport. That's because the weather is usually moderate. It's within a 2-hour flight of 80% of the U.S. population. About 250,000 passengers, 2,500 planes move through that airport every day. So when Atlanta goes down, that affects airlines and airports across North America.
It seems whenever you buy a ticket from, example, Orlando to Milwaukee, it's likely that you're going to have to connect in Atlanta. And there's so many flights that, while they're not destined to Atlanta, I mean, the flights are destined to Atlanta, but the passengers aren't. They're going somewhere else, but they make the connection through Atlanta. So when this is disrupted, it really becomes a mess. They've got a serious problem.
But to those stuck on the ground with no food, no water, that's just academic.
This is a mess for the last 3 hours. I mean, Things happened. If the power went out, understandable, but not to have a backup plan, nobody coming out telling us what's going on.
We get to the airport and we arrive to darkness and 1 million people, and we're like, oh no, not again.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Some are, unsurprisingly, taking to social media to vent through humor, like Elena Christina, who went on a bit of a tweet storm. The plane no longer has water. Good thing I hate survival and being alive. Going into hour 3 of sitting on a plane at the powerless Atlanta airport, the discussion about feminism did not go well. Next controversial topic, religion, climate change, taking suggestions. And the baby that was previously crying is now giving orders. He is a harsh dictator. And here's another look at today's nightmare. This is the so-called misery map. Have a look at this. It comes from travel monitoring website FlightAware. It tracks airports with the biggest number of reported problems. So check this out. This is what happens when it gets close to 1 p.m. Eastern time today. That red line at the top, that's Atlanta. It just takes over the misery map like a spiking stock market of despair. And while the Atlanta airport was ground zero for air traveling headaches today, there's some pain in this country too over WestJet and where they will and will not fly without telling their customers why. Simon Nakanishi explains.
WestJet prides itself on being generous during the Christmas season. But Joe Lawson feels like the airline stuffed his holiday stocking full of coal.
It certainly appears quite strongly that I was lied to by an airline.
Lawson booked a December flight from Toronto to Santa Clara, Cuba. But on September 26th, WestJet canceled it. The reason? The Santa Clara airport was closed until January because of Hurricane Irma. Turns out that wasn't true.
A couple of weeks ago, end of November, I looked at the airport and I saw, well, flights are actually operating out of that airport.
In fact, the Santa Clara airport had reopened even before WestJet canceled the flight. Now the airline has apologized for giving erroneous information to passengers like Lawson. The company declined an interview, but in a statement said the flights were canceled due to a business decision. This is now the 3rd time WestJet has had to say sorry for improperly using the closed airport excuse.
It's an embarrassment to WestJet, where WestJet basically had to ante up and basically come out publicly and make the apology. Now, whether there's any compensation, coming out of that apology, up to WestJet to decide.
WestJet did end up covering Lawson's fare difference for a more expensive flight to another Cuban destination. But he says airlines need stronger government oversight to keep tabs on whether they're being naughty or nice.
The situation, I don't think, is going to change unless people start to get a little more militant and start to demand a little more of their elected representatives, that people feel that they've had enough of this sort of misrepresentation.
Simon Nakanishi, CBC News, Montreal.
Lawyers for Donald Trump's presidential transition team say thousands of emails from the Trump team were obtained improperly as part of the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The uproar had many thinking that this was going to be ammunition for Trump to fire the man leading the investigation, Robert Mueller. Here's Paul Hunter with the president's response.
Back at the White House after a weekend trip to the Camp David retreat, the question for Donald Trump, is he thinking the unthinkable? Is he considering firing Special Counsel Robert Mueller? Short answer,
no, I'm not. No.
Mueller was hired to investigate possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia in Russian efforts to meddle in last year's election. But as that investigation digs deeper and deeper, talk from Trump has some believing his growing public frustration by it signals he's about to get rid of Mueller. Here's Trump on Friday.
I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia.
Then, a new flashpoint came this weekend with reports Mueller's team has tens of thousands of emails by senior Trump insiders from the weeks after last year's election. Lawyers for Trump's transition team wrote Congress calling the emails private. But investigators say it's all on the up and up. They got them from a government agency that collects such stuff, and the emails were on government devices where there's no real privacy. Tonight, on a government agency handing over those emails.
Not looking good. It's not looking good. It's quite sad to see that. So my people were very upset about it. I can't imagine there's anything on him, frankly, because, as we said, there's no collusion. There's no collusion whatsoever.
And though he suggested Mueller's job is safe for now, Democrats today defended Mueller's integrity, seemingly just in case.
I think that he is the person, the right person, that when he finishes his investigation, that we're going to have confidence it was done in a fair and balanced way.
Still, all the questions from Trump and others have left countless in this country wondering, what's next? Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
A British Columbia woman who has lived in Canada for nearly all of her 67 years has just discovered she's not actually Canadian. In fact, she has no citizenship at all. And trying to get it after all this time has been an ordeal.
It's consumed me. It's consumed me. 3,000 words a minute going through my head day and night. Insomnia. Not sleeping at all.
It's been tiring, and she says she feels isolated. But as the CBC's Briar Stewart reports, her experience is not as unusual as it may sound.
Brings back memories.
For Irene Gisling, Canada is the only home she's ever known. Her family immigrated from Germany when she was just a baby. She arrived by ship in Halifax in 1951.
I always assumed I was a Canadian. Mum led us to believe that. Her and Dad became citizens shortly after we arrived.
That's why it came as a shock when she was stopped at the U.S. border in 2012. She didn't have a passport. She later found out that not only was she not a Canadian citizen, but she didn't have the paperwork to prove she was a permanent resident. On top of that, she doesn't qualify for German citizenship.
I'm a stateless person. This card is the one I'm missing.
She tried to sort out her paperwork, but kept hitting roadblocks. When her husband died, she couldn't apply for survivor's benefits, and she worried she would lose access to health care.
But I felt like I didn't count. I didn't matter. I didn't have a voice, for sure. And that really, really upset me because I was in this alone.
But experts say her case isn't unique. How uncommon is it to hear of a case like this?
Well, this kind of case is not uncommon at all.
This immigration lawyer says others have found themselves in this situation. Adults without citizenship who've spent most of their lives in Canada, and applying for it later in life can take years.
The person has to confirm permanent residence. That takes a year or two. Then they have to formally apply for Canadian citizenship, a multi-year process. What do they do during the 3-4 years? How do they get Medicare, driver's permits, travel?
As for Gisling, officials have recently assured her that her health card will stay valid, and a caseworker from Immigration Canada has recently been assigned to her file to help her obtain the citizenship she thought she already had. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still ahead on the National, abortion, same-sex marriage, assisted dying. The former Supreme Court Chief Justice Beverly Mclaughlin has presided over some major changes in this country. My interview with her ahead.
On Thursday, Catalans vote again in an election being billed as a new referendum on independence. Margaret Evans takes us through the complicated, often violent history that brought us here.
And Sens fans are fuming after the owner threatens moving the team. So who's to blame for those empty seats?
Fans are pretty upset about his comments, and I think there could have been another way for him to go about it.
The cradle of Canadian aviation looks pretty much as it did in 1909. When the Silver Dart flew over Badek Bay, the first heavier-than-air flight in the British Empire. The small group who made it happen included the inventive Alexander Graham Bell and a daring pilot named J.A.D. McCurdy.
I made this little flight, about 60 feet high, 3/4 of a mile across the bay.
As McCurdy flew, Alexander Graham Bell watched.
It was then he said, "Oh, my boy, this may have made history."
An exact replica of the Silver Dart 95 years later.
It's incredible.
Jane Shapley, McCurdy's niece and a pilot herself, says her uncle knew he was part of something special.
Remember, he was a protege of Alexander Graham Bell, so I'm sure he picked up understood the big picture from the very beginning. and understood that this was a breakthrough.
That first flight was the liftoff for Canada's own aviation industry. An expansive, undeveloped country needed air travel, and so began the era of the bush pilots who opened up Canada's north. The Second World War accelerated aviation technology. Canada developed a fledgling airline industry, and by the 1950s, this country was on the cutting edge with such aircraft as the CF-100.
We had a huge pool of engineering talent in this country and a truly can-do attitude. The Canada of the 1950s in the aeronautical world didn't take a back seat to anybody at all.
In the history of aviation in Canada, there is one development, one achievement that falls in the category of what might have been, the Avro Arrow. Canada was on the verge of being a global power in fighter aircraft, but the Arrow was expensive, and it was scrapped by Prime Minister Diefenbaker in 1959.
You realize how ineffective it would have been.
Still, Canada's aviation industry has never looked back. Bombardier is a global giant in regional aircraft. CAE is #1 in flight simulators. Canada's first astronaut, Marc Garneau, was the first non-American flight engineer on a space shuttle. And the Canada Arm is an orbiting billboard for Canada's aerospace technology. Today, a multi-billion-dollar industry that owes a small debt to a few dreamers in Badek, Nova Scotia, nearly a century ago. Eric Sorensen, CBC News, Ottawa.
There she goes!
After a 2-hour wait, the rains finally subsided, and the replica flyer trundled down its runway, tantalizingly close to taking off before splashing into a mud puddle.
On the National tonight, these are Christians protesting in southwestern Pakistan, demanding government protection after 2 suicide bombers stormed a crowded church this morning and killed at least 9 people. Another 56 were injured in the attack just 8 days before Christmas. ISIS claimed responsibility but provided no evidence. And Australian police have charged a man with brokering sales of weapons of mass destruction. That's the first time someone has been charged under this law. He is accused of trying to sell North Korean missile components on the black market to buyers in Indonesia, Vietnam, and other unnamed countries. The suspect is of South Korean descent and has lived in Australia for 30 years. And U.S. Senator John McCain is putting his health before politics, and that means he will likely miss a crucial vote this week on Donald Trump's tax plan. The 81-year-old has returned home to Arizona. His doctor says he has a viral infection. McCain, as you recall, was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor back in July.
Ottawa hopes to be going into that game with a much-needed win.
If it becomes a disaster, yes. If you start not seeing crowds showing up, yes.
I think it's kind of annoying because I think it's kind of his fault. He's done a bad job of kind of promoting the team.
Send it out and scores!
What's the point in taking a shot at fans if it's just going to get worse? It's a downward spiral from there. So, yeah, I think he needs to take a look at himself.
The Ottawa Senators are finally going to win.
We'd love to see them stay, but it's not up to us, I guess.
Ottawa Senators fans should be riding high on last night's big win, but in fact, they're angry at the team's owner, Eugene Melnyk, for threatening to move the hockey team out of the nation's capital while blaming the city for not filling seats. Take a look at attendance numbers for the Canadian Tire Centre for the start of the season over the last 5 years. It's gone from a high of more than 18,000 to only about 15,000 this year, and that's one of the worst in 2 decades. Still, as Hannah Thibodeau found out, Melnyk's veiled threat isn't really sitting well with Sens fans.
The spotlight was on hockey in the nation's capital this weekend, from Senators alumni to Saturday night's NHL 100 Classic outdoor game between Ottawa and Montreal.
Fires a rolling puck.
And even young kids having a pickup game on the lawn of Parliament Hill. But Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnyk put a damper on those festivities even before they began. Late Friday night, threatening to relocate the team.
If it doesn't look good here, it could look very, very nice somewhere else.
Then taking a direct shot at the fans.
Here, we're fighting every day to sell a ticket, honest to God. And when you get to the third round of the playoffs and you're begging people to buy a ticket, something's wrong with that picture.
Melnyk blames low attendance, evidence as seen during last year's playoffs when the team was ridiculed for having hundreds of empty seats, prompting it to remove 1,500 of them this season because the team didn't want to face the demoralizing sight. Hockey Night in Canada commentator Don Cherry says he doesn't blame Melnyk.
If your people don't show up and they don't pack the place all the time, they can't survive with 13,000. He's gone. Ottawa's gone for sure.
But fans are not impressed.
It's like he's throwing a big party and then he threw cold water all over it.
I don't like that. I like the team in Ottawa.
Fans are pretty upset about his comments, and I think there could have been another way for him to go about it.
From one owner to another, Pittsburgh Penguins co-owner Mario Lemieux had this advice.
Eventually, I think he's going to get it his way, but he needs to be a little bit more patient.
Many simply hope Melnyk is bluffing. If the team leaves, more than $100 million per year would also leave the local economy.
It's not just the games themselves, it's the facility that hosts other events. There's so many ways that the Senators are integrated into this community.
Even though off ice, Melnyk put a chill on the NHL 100 celebrations, his team's on-ice performance improved. The Senators beat the Canadiens at the Outdoor Classic. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ottawa Senators fan attendance ranks near the bottom in the NHL. Last season, Ottawa was 24th out of 30 teams in terms of arena capacity. Only places like Carolina, Arizona, Florida have worse numbers in home attendance, and the Sens rank lowest of the 7 Canadian teams. In Canada, Montreal, Toronto, and Winnipeg, on average, sold out their home games. Beverly Mclaughlin has officially hung up her robe as Canada's Chief Justice. I sat down with her recently to talk about the legacy of the Mclaughlin Court and how some of its major decisions changed this country.
Have we been too activist? I don't think on the whole the courts have been. I think they're trying to do their job of upholding the Constitution and upholding the law.
Joining us now from her chambers at the British Columbia Supreme Court in Vancouver is Madam Justice Beverly Mclaughlin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You are very young to be appointed to the Supreme Court. I guess that's an occasion for a double congratulations. You'll probably be sitting on the bench for a long time at that level. What is it that you'd like to be remembered for at the end of it all, if you can look that far ahead now?
Well, I suppose I'd like to be remembered as being a good judge, a judge who understood the problems that were put before her, who dealt with them in a clear and hopefully correct manner, and a judge who also showed an understanding of the sort of problems ordinary people face and
well, let me interrupt you there, because is it true that the Supreme Court hears cases usually that have to do with ordinary people? My impression as an ordinary person is that the Supreme Court deals with things that are very legal, technical, arcane even.
Well, the concepts may seem legal and technical and arcane, but I think the sorts of things the Supreme Court deals with are very much of great importance to ordinary people. Look at some of the recent decisions on abortion, signs in stores in Quebec, language rights, charter rights. I think a lot of these things impact very strongly on ordinary people, and very often the suits themselves are brought by ordinary people, but they have an impact that reaches far beyond the particular litigants in a particular case. So I do think that the court is very much concerned with the rights and liberties of ordinary people.
Let me ask you if there's something on the agenda pending, a social issue, a legal problem that's likely to come before the Supreme Court that you hope does? Something that you're dying to tackle at that level?
Well, I don't know. If judges usually think in terms of issues they're dying to tackle or of agendas that they set out, very much what we do and what we decide is determined by the issues the litigants bring before us. We're just there to decide the legal questions that are brought before us. So we can't determine our own agenda. But it is obvious, having said that, that charter issues remain important. While there has been a great deal of work done by the Supreme Court to date in defining rights and freedoms under the Charter, there doubtless will be other issues which will come forward in the next few years, and those are very important.
Kids now sometimes come up and ask me, when did you decide to be a judge? The answer is never. I never dreamed growing up that I would become a lawyer, much less a judge, much less the Chief Justice of the country's highest court.
Beverly Mclaughlin has now officially left the role of Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but she still has about 6 months of work ahead to finish off some major decisions. We sat down in the Justice's reading room recently to talk about how Canada's top court has evolved and what Mclaughlin leaves behind. For 28 years, Beverly Mclaughlin served on the Supreme Court of Canada. For 17 of them, she was Chief Justice, the first woman to do so.
The fact that I am in this seat today is a testament to the justice of Canadian society.
Mclaughlin has been a legal giant, unafraid to take a stand, pick an issue that made headlines, prostitution laws.
I would like to thank the Supreme Court of Canada for declaring sex workers to be persons.
Assisted dying.
They won't be forced to suffer in bodies that have failed them.
Mclaughlin was key to all of them.
It's hard to just overlook that suffering.
She also famously stood her ground in a public dispute with former Prime Minister Stephen Harper.
I did what was the appropriate thing.
Last week, the Chief Justice bid farewell.
Whatever lies ahead, I know that my time here will always be the centerpiece of my life.
Now, upon her retirement, we were granted a rare interview where I focused on her legacy, leadership, and how the Supreme Court has changed under her direction. How do you feel you've changed the court?
Well, I'm not sure that I would actually claim to have changed it a great deal, but I've tried to encourage consensus. I've tried to encourage collegiality.
One of the things, and I know you don't seem to want to take credit for anything, but let me try again. One of the things that you have tried to do, and you've certainly spoken a lot about, is access to the courts.
Yeah.
Because you believe that if people aren't given access throughout society, that accountability fails.
Right.
How have you worked to try and make sure that that is happening, and what is sort of left to do on that?
We have a wonderful justice system, but the problem is that it's often inaccessible for one reason or another to ordinary men, women, ordinary Canadians. And I believe that a justice system has to serve the people, everyone, and not just the rich and the corporations and so on. So this became a concern, and I decided to talk about it in a speech in Toronto. And it was amazing how it resonated. We got so much response, so many people saying, this is true, this is my experience, the justice system isn't there for us when we need it, or it costs too much, or I can't get a lawyer, or I don't know where to go. And so I really realized that this was a major thing for Canadians, that we'd really touched on something. So we started making efforts to see what we could get going in the way of conversations about how we can improve the situation.
To talk about this court a little bit, there was some hope that with you leaving, that there might be an Indigenous person named to the court. And I know you've talked as well about seeing Indigenous people in these kinds of positions. Why do you think that would matter? What message would that send?
Well, it would send a message of inclusiveness. It's very important, I think, that Canadians be able to see themselves reflected in the judges who are on the bench. And it used to be, for example, there were no women on the bench.
Yes.
So there is a message to be sent to people. This courtroom reflects you.
Yeah.
And that's important for confidence in justice.
I want to go back to some comments you made in May of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
These were in a speech you made about, you talked about the cultural genocide on Indigenous people. And there were some people that came out and were critical, not necessarily because of the language, but the fact that you said anything at all.
In the buzzword of the day, assimilation. In the language of the 21st century, cultural genocide.
Why did you use that language? Why did you feel it was so important?
Well, I was talking about the history, and I think it's important to understand the law, for example, to understand the history to which it applies and from where it comes. And the topic was diversity and respect for difference. And so in the context of that, I spoke about laws that were on the books in the 19th century, in the early 20th century, that undermined and actually denied Indigenous cultural practices. Things like laws that eradicated the sun dance, that said you couldn't do the potlatch, that took children away from their cultures and homes and put them in residential schools where they were not allowed to speak their language.
Or see their parents.
And see their parents. I mean, this is a cultural deprivation which has led to a lot of problems that show themselves in the legal system. But we need to understand where we were and the progress we're making in our journey of reconciliation and toward where we hope to be.
Were you surprised at the reaction to those comments?
Well, a little. I mean, I didn't think I was saying anything very remarkable because everyone agrees that these things happened in history, that we did undermine culture or try to. So I was a bit surprised by the reaction, yes.
I'm going to move through a few topics, if that's okay. Would you agree that there is a problem with judges not understanding or properly applying sexual assault law and jurisprudence? And if so, how on earth do we fix that?
Yeah. I want to think, and I do believe, that 99% of the judges are very, very cognizant of the issues involved. But occasionally, we've had instances where a particular judge has shown that he is influenced by the stereotypes and myths of the past. We've been working in the law for decades to eradicate this, both Parliament and the judges. We know it's wrong. So the key, I believe, is in judicial education and early judicial education. What we mean by that is sensitizing judges to the issues that come up in sexual assault trials, how to handle them, how victims or complainants feel, how difficult it is for them to come forward with their story. And we are working very, very hard to ensure that every judge who goes on the bench and hears this sort of a trial will be totally sensitized and appreciative of all these difficulties.
When you hear the last couple of cases where this has happened, it's fairly shocking to me. I don't know about you, how you...
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
it
very
only
few.
takes
Yes.
one or
Yeah.
two cases to lead the public to think that all the judges are like that. That would be a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
That is not the way the justice system is operating. But one such case is one too many, and it has to be dealt with.
I'm going to go back to some of your time with the former Prime Minister, if I can. When did you realize that you were involved in some sort of extraordinary disagreement or dispute with Prime Minister Harper?
4 a.m. in the morning, I had been in New Brunswick the night before giving a speech, and I had to get back to Ottawa for 8 o'clock. So as I recall, I got up, I went down to the desk, and there was the Globe and Mail with the accusations on the front page.
The accusations that you had behaved improperly.
Yeah, the press release. And so obviously I was shocked, I was astounded, because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. And I spent a rather miserable 2.5 hours on the flight figuring out how this could have happened and what was going on. And then when I got back to the office, I thought about it, and I said, well, you know, I'm not going to get into a fight. Judges can't get into fights with politicians. We have to just be quiet if we're accused normally. But I do believe the public is entitled to the facts. So I sent out a press release, said I have done nothing wrong, and these are the facts, and I numbered them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it was, and I sent it out. And that was all I ever did. Never gave an interview, never went to the press.
What do you think was the consequence of it, though? Because you set out your facts, they set out whatever they were going to say, but the impression it left with the public was that you were fighting.
Yeah, well, as I say, I declined to fight, but I did think the public should know the facts. But the consequence, I think, was fine. I was worried that any such allegation could tarnish the administration of justice, could tarnish the office of Chief Justice, could tarnish the court. That was my main concern and the reason I put out the facts. But it turned out, I think, quite well.
Conservatives, though, believe that you became an activist, Chief Justice, you know that, and that the court became activist, that it got involved even in developing social policy, whether it be through prostitution, injection sites, assisted dying. They believe that that was you taking that role on. What would you say to
when
that?
the charter was adopted in 1982, we changed the role of the judiciary. Judges were, not through their own desire, but they were the ones who were called upon to decide whether government's laws and actions conformed to the charter. So the judges were thrust into this role. At the time, there was a lot of debate. This is in the 80s and the 90s. And that's when I think these charges of judicial activism reached their heights. And I understand perfectly the concerns. It was a sea change. And for a lot of people, they didn't agree with that change. Have we been too activist? I don't think on the whole the courts have been. I think they're trying to do their job of upholding the Constitution and upholding the law.
And the fact that Stephen Harper's government came up against the court so often and was smacked down, might be too casual a language, but you pushed back on things that they had put out there. I wonder if there wasn't some overreach on the part of the government, and whether you went back and forth with them saying,
Well, we take what we get. If you send us a certain law, we have to judge it objectively and in accordance with the principles that have been laid down. And so that's all we do. But we definitely don't get partisan or anything like that. And we simply have to call it as we see it.
I want to talk to you about assisted dying, only because you were ahead of your time on this. I mean, you really were. Back in the Sue Rodriguez case, you had a dissenting opinion in '93 where you believed that people should have this ability. It took an awfully long time for the rest of the country to catch up with you. So why do you think that you were so ahead on that?
Well, there were several other judges who agreed with me, I have to point out, even in the Rodriguez case, and it was a difficult case for us then. And it is a difficult issue. But I think if you look at the judgment, you'll see that what had happened, the principal change was that there was a lot more evidence on how assisted dying could be made to work in a respectful and civilized way. And the worldview was changing. There were many countries in the world that had grappled with this issue. So the perspectives and the facts on the ground changed, perhaps social attitudes a little, but those were the major changes.
Is it too big a question to ask you what you're most proud of?
Well,
a decision
it is
or a
big
moment?
question.
It is.
I'm very proud of the work we've done on Indigenous rights. I'm proud of the work we've done on the Charter. I think the court has done good work and work that's recognized throughout the world, and I'm very proud of that.
What will you miss the most about it?
Oh, I'll miss a lot of things, but I'll miss the judging, the ability to grapple with new, difficult issues that are coming down the track. And I'll have to stand there in the sidelines and watch others do it, and that will be something that will be hard.
Okay. Chief Justice, thank you very much for making the time. We do appreciate it.
It's lovely.
Thank you very much. The new Chief Justice, Richard Wagner, will be sworn in tomorrow morning at Rideau Hall by Governor General Julie Payette. The Prime Minister will also be there. Wagner is from Quebec and so respects the tradition of alternating between jurists trained in common law and those in Quebec's civil law. Before we go to break, meet Christina Scooblincks from Kitchener-Waterloo and her Christmas celebration with a perfectly Canadian twist.
Welcome to Gingerbread Parliament. Every year, my boyfriend Stefan's family gets together to make gingerbread houses. This was my first time joining in, so I wanted to make something special, an iconic landmark. I was born and raised in Ottawa, so I decided to make the Canadian Parliament. Here we have the Centennial Flame, made out of a fuzzy peach ring. And here we have every green candy that we had on the roof. The clock hands are made of licorice, and my favorite part is that we just happened to have a Canadian flag on a toothpick. It took about 6 hours to make, and it was a lot of fun. Happy holidays.
Well, we're essentially very excited to be out here in Canada. It's been a while since we've been able to come, and this album, Emotion, the album that we're performing, is been the passion project of my life. So it feels really cool to be with a band like Hedley and get to finally come in and see everyone.
And speaking of Hedley, will you be performing any songs together?
It's so far not in the plan. We have known each other for years, though, just because of different award shows and different ceremonies where you kind of meet up and become casual friends. And we've definitely followed each other's career and are great supporters of one another. So I do my set and they do their set, and we kind of just celebrate and watch each other.
You've mentioned you'll be showcasing songs from your album, Emotion, but a lot of fans will want to hear what's considered really in a lot of places around the world as the summer song of 2012.
It's not as intimidating as it once was. I think the making of Emotion kind of fixed that for me, at least. It feels like it's a great moment in the set, and it's a celebration of sorts, but it doesn't feel like the highlight anymore, which is really relieving for me, to be honest.
So you're going to be seeing a lot of the country on this tour, from Moncton to Toronto, from Dawson Creek to Vancouver. Are all of the stops places you've been to before?
Well, actually, I did a fair amount of touring in Canada before anything kind of took off for me with different bands, whether it was Marianas Trench or the New Cities or even Hanson. So I have actually done the runs a few times, but this will be a different kind of tour just because, like I said, the material is something that I'm proud of in a different way than I've ever been proud of anything. And I feel a little bit more like I've kind of come into my own as an artist, so getting to see people and greet them with that confidence is something that I'm really excited and kind of dying to do.
So, of course, you and the lead singer of Hedley, Jacob Hogard, were on Canadian Idol. I'm curious, did you get a chance to watch the finale of American Idol last night?
I didn't. We just flew in from Japan, and then we had our show here for the first time in St. John's, and I was so jet-lagged that I barely got through it, but I found the energy for that, but not much else, I'm not going to lie.
So a lot of people are talking this week about the impact of the Idol programs on pop music. What about on you? What impact did your experience on Canadian Idol have?
You know, it was a really great stepping stone for me. I look back at that show with fondness and still a little bit of nerves because it was both things.
I got it bad, and that ain't good.
It was really wonderful and really terrifying, but I'm glad I did it all in all. I think that every sort of random adventure along the way helps to build your confidence and kind of changes the way you think about the whole game. And for me, it was a blessing and a kind of a blessing that I saw later on that I had gotten as far as I had.
Today in Catalonia, the noisy art of persuasion in advance of Thursday's election. That vote will steer the fate of the Spanish region, where some people yearn for independence. In October, the semi-autonomous Catalan parliament voted to leave Spain. That led the Spanish prime minister to just throw out the regional government and call this week's election. So the tensions there are fresh and very much in flux, but they also have roots in a long-ago conflict. The Spanish Civil War and its fascist aftermath were brutal for the Catalans. Their language and culture were suppressed, and they were among the tens of thousands of people put to death to quell dissent. Tonight, Margaret Evans shows us how the ghosts of that war may guide the living.
Silent testimonials from the past emerging from earthen layers in the hills of Catalonia, long buried but not forgotten. These are the bones of men and at least one woman who died near the town of Solares during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. It's one of an estimated 2,000 mass graves across Spain dating back to that era and the fascist dictatorship of General Franco that followed.
It is the biggest one that we have intervened here in Catalonia, and that also we find soldiers from both sides.
Site anthropologist Diego Lopez believes there are about 100 skeletons buried here in 4 rows of trenches. That's a drop in the bucket when looking at an estimated 150,000 people believed to have been disappeared during and after the war.
If there is no political will, you can do it. And when there is political will, you can do it like in big.
The excavation was approved by Catalonia earlier this year. That Madrid has done so little to retrieve and identify bodies, despite a 2007 law on the preservation of memory, is a source of great distress to many Spaniards, and in Catalonia, of suspicion. Corbera d'Ebre, about 50 kilometers from Solares. It was destroyed in 1938 in one of the bloodiest and most decisive chapters of the war. Volunteer international brigades, including one from Canada, fought with the Republicans against Franco. Today, it is a preserved site. Ramon Girone's father fought against the fascists. For him, the past seems close. Most of the people in the Spanish government come from the families that were supporting Franco, he says. They've never liked Catalonia much. Many Catalonians share that view. A Christmas market in Barcelona, the Catalonian capital. All the colors of the festive season are on display with a new addition. Yellow, a ribbon worn for separatist leaders jailed or in exile after staging a referendum deemed illegal by Madrid in October. Catalonia's autonomy was revoked, separatist leaders arrested, and new elections called for December 21st. Merry Christmas. Gel Bonet hangs a flag bearing a picture of men known here as the two Jordis, Jordi Sanchez and Benoit's husband, Jordi Cuixart. The pro-independence activists were charged with sedition after the referendum and could face 10 years in prison.
And we try to be strong every day, and every little day is like a little battle that we win. But I don't want to think in 10 years.
Leaders of the now defunct Catalonian government were also arrested. Some are campaigning from jail, others by Skype from exile. It is surreal. Bonet says to deny a legal referendum is to deny democracy.
If the referendum, the result is no, okay. But the most important is the possibility and the right to vote, like Scotland, like Quebec.
Opinion polls suggest the vote will be extremely close, perhaps simply re-entrenching existing divisions. Support for union with Spain is stronger in Barcelona than it is in the Catalan countryside, people comfortable with more than one identity. The problem, say analysts, is that Madrid is not.
I think that Spain has to come in terms with
its own diversity, because it's one of the sources of the unrest in Catalonia.
Constitutional law expert Xavier Arbos Marin admits the government's reluctance to deal with the past hasn't helped in the current climate.
It's true that politically the Popular Party has been reluctant to accept that Franco's regime was a dictatorship.
The Catalan language and culture were suppressed by Franco for decades. The current government's heavy-handed tactics against voters trying to cast ballots in the referendum and arresting leaders considered political prisoners by many has made it easy for Madrid's opponents to make comparisons. Even the yellow ribbons to remember the jailed leaders have been banned in public spaces by Madrid. If they go up, they're quickly taken down again. In the cold winter months, the pace in the countryside slows to a crawl, but opinions do not, especially in the local bar. And not everyone wants to look to the past. I don't want to go back 30 to 50 years to justify independence, says Francisco Guerrero. It's not reasonable. He's more interested in how an independent Catalonia would pay to protect its borders or patrol them. And even those who do have independence in their hearts, like Ramon Gijones, say they fear what it might cost. The current situation is very difficult, he says. There are hardly any countries that have gained their independence without blood. Independence or not, the dead still wait, lost and nameless in their unmarked graves. Many of those who died fighting for Franco are already accounted for because their side was the victor. Not so for his victims. Those who would see them find their way home at last say sometimes you need to reopen the past in order to close it. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Catalonia.
Go deeper on the stories of the day earlier in the day. Subscribe to our newsletter at cbcnews.ca/The National. The National today takes you inside our journalism every afternoon.
It's Christmas again, which, as far as I can tell from reading the newspapers and watching TV, is the season people the world over celebrate the birth of Jim Carrey. Judging by the box office receipts, the Grinch has not only stolen Christmas, we're paying him immense sums of money to do it. You know it's Christmas in Toronto because the malls are full, the downtown is paralytic with credit card overload, and the great plastic and styrofoam mastodons known as Mel's Moose are undergoing gender surgery and trying to pass themselves off as reindeer. Where I come from, moose have a purpose. They're alive and they're edible. And they're rarely, if ever, encountered in front of the downtown bank machine and never, to my knowledge, next to the check-in counter of any local hotel. Toronto at Christmas is a zoo, thanks to Mr. Lastman, both literally and figuratively. It's better than Ottawa, I suppose. I don't think it'll ever be Christmas in Ottawa again. The Liberals are back with more seats than ever for a third term. And the need for Mr. Chrétien to play Santa Claus or Jane Stewart, head elf, are lost and gone forever. The Prime Minister, Mr. Chrétien, will be sending out a few presents. An autographed copy of Red Book 3 will be hand-delivered by Governor-General Adrian Clarkson and Consort John Ralston Saul to everyone who voted Liberal in Ontario, which is everyone in Ontario. Simultaneously, they will enter it for the Giller Prize, the prestigious Fiction Award, which very surprisingly has overlooked the two even more stunning fantasies by the same author, Red Book 1 and Red Book 2. Stockwell Day will not be in Ottawa this Christmas. The Stockwell Days plan to spend a quiet Christmas moaning at home and viewing outtakes from some of the summer's more buff Alliance commercials. Mr. Day may or may not eventually rappel his way to 24 Sussex Drive, but should he ever decide politics is not his game, there'll always be a home for him in Mountain Dew commercials. Joe Clark is having a merry old Christmas. He's been ho-ho-hoing, as only Joe Clark can ho-ho-ho, since November. He didn't win more seats, but he outclassed the competition. There are as few fitness commercials in Joe Clark's future as there are rap videos. But in campaign 2000, Joe Clark was the guy who went up to the bar and ordered sarsaparilla and then cleaned out the saloon. I think Joe should be in the next Jackie Chan movie. The NDP, bless their recycled hearts, may have a bleak Christmas. All is not happy in the NDP manger. St. Nick person will not skip them altogether, but I fear Buzz Hargrove may have put out the word that as far as Alexa McDonough is concerned, the elves are strictly work to rule this year. But enough about politics. Christmas, if it has any cheer, is an escape from politics. Despite what I said at the beginning, Toronto is a good place to celebrate Christmas. It gets more peaceful here each year. For example, there have been at least 2 snowfalls already in this city, and no one yet has called in the army. Christmas in Toronto without the military. Throw in a couple of styrofoam moose munching on the AstroTurf at the Dome, and you've got the perfect UNICEF card. Be cheerful. For The National, I'm Rex Murphy.
Now, on the season finale of Kim's Convenience.
When did you start riding?
When didn't I ride?
Very recently. How fast do you think you go?
Probably too fast. Very dangerous. Maybe after you give to me, right?
Tuesday at 9 on CBC.
Our communication channels remain open. North Korea knows they're open. They know where the door is. They know where to walk through that door when they want to talk.
Well, that is U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson speaking about the North Korea crisis at the UN this weekend, a topic that will figure prominently in his diplomatic visit to Ottawa this Tuesday. Tillerson and Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland will discuss security and economic issues. And Tillerson isn't the only one in the Trump administration traveling this week. U.S. President Mike Pence will almost certainly get a warmer welcome than this when he visits Israel on his Middle East trip. It's his first since the Trump administration announced it would officially recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Pence will meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday after a stop in Cairo. Palestinian leaders said no to a meeting. And later this week, a gift to Fernie, BC. The town was hit by a tragedy in October when an ammonia leak in the local arena killed 3 people. The rink has been shut down ever since, but in a few days, they will have an NHL-sized outdoor rink to skate on. That's courtesy of the Calgary Flames Foundation. We'll have that story for you this week on The National.
Okay, so tonight's newscast has had plenty of airport horror stories in it, and no doubt delays and cancellations. They can be maddening, but we've found 2 little girls who definitely found a way to entertain themselves, as little girls do, while waiting for their flight. Check it out in our moment of the day.
You're so silly. Oh,
The little sister joined in. This is Tinley and Bryn Lavon, and they were waiting for a connecting flight in Dallas after a week at Disney World, and it looks like they found one more magical moment on the way home. That airport worker, Chris Anderson, taught them plenty of pretty clutch dance moves like the funky chicken. They'll be a hit at the next wedding they go to. And obviously, this is one of these things, Adrian, that has taken off, and the little girls have no idea that they've become a viral sensation. All they're talking about are the princesses they met at Disney World.
Yeah, of course. And we reached out to Chris, by the way. His girlfriend found the Vaughn family on Facebook, so they're all talking. It's all very nice. And all the comments on Facebook suggest he deserves a raise. So, you know, heads up, Dallas Airport.
I have to travel later this week, and if there is a delay, I commit to doing the chicken dance in front of people as well.
I will hold you to that.
Okay. That's The National for December 17th. Good night, everybody.
Good night.